there's a crunch in the market for high quality language experts. Language experts are there. They're everywhere.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new podcast, and today's guest is Shobhit. Shobhit is a French and a German language expert, and he was learning both the language simultaneously, which is not that easy, I should tell you. And in today's video, we would be talking about how learning languages can really kickstart your professional career and how you can do other things around languages. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Hi Shobhit, welcome to my podcast, The Language Experience. How are you?
Hello, Lakshay. I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Very, very excited about having this conversation with you.
So basically, this podcast is about languages. I want to talk to people who speak multiple languages outside Hindi and English and the mother tongue that we have.
Right.
So before anything, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So I am Shobhit Nangia. I was, born and brought up in Delhi. I've worked outside of Delhi for quite a while in terms of my total experience in one capacity or the other as a language expert, primarily for the French language, but some bits in German as well. So I've always been quite passionate about learning new languages. And I think as Indians, we would know at least two or three. I mean, we would have, English and then maybe one or two languages, depending on which part of the country we belong to and maybe where our parents were from. So I think Indians are naturally kind of multilingual like that.
True.
So it was great to, learn extra foreign languages because it is sort of a window to that world as well.
True. Like by default, I would say Hindi for North Indians, and then if you're Punjabi or
Right.
anything else, we would speak that language. And then if you go to a private school, then English by default.
Right.
So now I have mentioned school. I want to know how were you as a kid in school? How was your school life? Were you a studious one, or were you the notorious one?
Right. So school life was was great. Yeah. I mean, I didn't study too far away from where I live. I changed one school throughout my entire school life. I wouldn't say I was too studious, but not too notorious either. One of those average Joes who kind of maybe lead to indifference when it comes to teachers because they're like, "Acha, he does a decent job, does
But
not
could
really
do
trouble."
better. The
But could
usual,
do better.
the usual when the report card it says
Absolutely.
doing great but can do better.
हाँ
The
कि
usual.
पोटेंशियल बहुत है बच्चे में बस थोड़ा सा अपने आप को पुश करे तो he can kind of get somewhere.
But nobody cares that he's not interested. Like I would always tell myself, but I'm not interested in studying.
Absolutely, yeah. And at that point I think it was very difficult to sometimes relate to what we were studying, and maybe because we're talking about languages, and I did have French as a language that I selected to study in school, and that was such a different experience vis-a-vis what I learned when I say joined a one of those language cultural centers that are affiliated to governments of that particular country. So in that way I think maybe I did not, my passion was not really fed in that manner in school. It's not like I was like, oh, they taught this so well, or I learned this language so well that I want to continue it and take it to the next level. It was only when I started learning it almost full time in a manner apart from my degree is when I kind of got into it because the environment that you're a part of, right? It's not just like you're learning a language. You have the library there, you have movie screenings, you have cultural events and whatnot. So it's an experience on its own.
So it was my next question, that did you have any language in school, which you answered that yes, you had French, but there were other options. Or for me, like in my school, we had Sanskrit, French, or Hindi,
Right.
like after 8. But did you have other options?
Yes. So we again had Sanskrit as an option. Hindi was there. There was French as well as German.
Okay, German was
And
after that.
Yes. And I have quite a few friends who did do German and got very excited eventually when they got to know that I've learned some German as well. That whatever little broken language they remembered, they would try and kind of use it.
It happens.
Right. But again, that was a very similar experience. I think there's a lot that we could do in terms of making, I know this conversation is not about that, but maybe improving the level of sort of teaching when it comes to
No, it is. I
yeah,
really, I'm one of those people who
right.
really, I don't shy away from criticizing what we are taught in school. Not like, I'm not talking about
Hmm.
generally what we are taught, I'm
Hmm.
talking about languages. I
Right,
recently made a video why schools and colleges are lying about foreign languages.
right.
So I really want to touch upon the topic where, what is your opinion? Like my opinion is out
Yeah,
there on the internet, but what is your opinion about
sure.
languages in school? What they teach, is it really
Yeah,
helpful, or is it a marketing? Because I've used the word, there's a
yeah,
marketing strategy to
right.
attract more kids and fees. What is your opinion?
Right. So yeah, my opinion is that even I mean there may be certain institutions that may use it as a marketing strategy, and certain others who do not really maybe dive deep into how well this is being kind of put across to the students, or to what extent is this going to help, rather than it being one of those token sort of things to do, or ceremonial things to do, just to kind of show it. Just to give you a parallel, I mean, in a lot of European countries, especially in Scandinavia, you would have them, they would speak their mother tongue, whether it's Danish or you know uh, uh,
Swedish or Norwegian,
Swedish, or
yeah. Hmm.
absolutely, and they would speak English
Very
to the
well.
extent where
Yeah.
and these were not really English colonies, so it's not as if they have that legacy, right? But it helps because then they open themselves up to the global market.
True.
So for us, again, if you look at either French or German or Spanish, India, even though we do have a large amount of language experts, I still feel that sometimes a lot of high quality work
Yeah.
doesn't really come to us, and it really does go to Eastern Europe. You like some of the organizations that I've worked with had centers in Eastern Europe as well. One of the organizations also had a center in say Egypt, where again,
Yeah. I was surprised. Even I was surprised when
Yeah.
some of the work from our company went to Egypt or Prague, where
Right.
I did not know. But you raised a very good point, like how the Scandinavian countries, they speak English well. Even in Germany, they speak English very well. But
Right.
I'll tell the flip side, where if you go to south of Europe, southwest of Europe, countries like Portugal, Italy, Spain, France, they don't speak English well. So I'm telling you the
Right.
flip side. It's not just that, oh, it's West, so they
Mhm.
will speak English.
Mhm.
There are
Right.
countries that are not really doing well with English because they don't want to learn. So it's not just okay, it's West, they want to learn
Mhm. Right.
a foreign language, because we have a narrative running in our country recently where learning a foreign language, because when I put up reels or stories or something around languages, I get comments which says, or Sanskrit ka kya?
Right. Yeah.
So I want to tell people that we are learning languages as a skill, not to
Uh-huh.
promote any other culture.
Right. Absolutely. And again, to each their own, right? Everyone would have their own sort of reason for learning a language, improving your skill set. Some people may want to go abroad and study. And of course, I mean, Sanskrit by all means would be very helpful. In fact, it can be the base of, I mean, sometimes, there's a parallel that was drawn by Max Miller between Sanskrit and German
Yeah.
as well. So most certainly Latin has so much of
Sanskrit, yes.
Absolutely. So that is something that it's apples and oranges, right? ऐसा नहीं है कि that you shouldn't learn one and you should learn the other. It is really bases your interest level and what you mean to achieve out of it,
Exactly. What you
either
want to do from
professionally.
the
Yeah.
language. It's not about if I'm learning any foreign language, it makes me a part of a group. It's just that it's a choice. And being very honest, I learned Spanish because I had interest in football, nothing else. I had no plans. I would make a career out of it, or I will do things, or today I will run a podcast
Yeah.
in 2022.
Yeah.
We had our own experiences. But you raised a point where we lack quality in languages. We lack
Yeah.
quality language experts. I have my opinion where I would 100% agree with you. We do lack. There's a reason to it as well. Again, my opinion is there on the internet.
Right.
What do you think? Why do we
Yeah.
lack?
So I think we kind of lack because sometimes we're not really chasing perfection I mean, we can't really achieve perfection in language, but
Excellence.
the highest level of excellence that we can achieve and continuously improving upon that. It's like will I get a job after B1 or will I get a job after B2? And
Do
once
you,
I
do you
have
get
that
this
job,
question? Do you get this question often?
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
do. My
right,
Instagram is full of. Yesterday only a kid texted me. I want to learn Spanish. I want to go
uh-huh,
to Spain and Latin America. But I explained him by learning Spanish, you cannot go to Spain. He said,
right,
"कैसे कैसे हो सकता है?" I explained him. Spanish is a skill in India because people do not speak Spanish here.
right,
But Spanish is not a skill in
uh-huh,
Spain because everybody speaks that language over there. You
right,
have to learn something else, mix
right.
up, and maybe hope that the Spanish government is kind enough to give you work because in reality, we are taught or we are fed this thing where do
Mhm.
XYZ, then you can go outside.
Absolutely, absolutely. It'll be like, so for example, if you had an Indian company, or say, just to give you an example of one Indian language, a Hindi speaking, organization in Spain, and then you are thinking that, all right, if I learn Hindi, I can go to India. You can, of course, but what is the value in it? Because you have a substantial part of the population that already does.
Already speaks, and
Speak,
he's 100,
right.
like they
So
are
so
already better.
yeah. So what is that differential factor that you would have?
So one point would be
Right.
we are not chasing the excellence, or
Ab-
the idea is let me reach this point so that I can
mm,
clear
yeah.
the interview, get
Right.
a job, and that's it.
Absolutely. And that is why sometimes the quality work, which is high quality, where they're looking at people who are at a native level of language, the way we can maybe communicate in English, if we were able to do that in, say, Spanish or French or German or any other sort of European or other language, which may be offering jobs, they would want us to have that level, right? Because at the end of the day, say for example, if I'm in a job where I'm looking at escalations and handling emails or something like that in, for example, French, and I'm writing bad grammar, how does that reflect even on the organization as a whole, right? Because
Yeah,
you, at the end of the day, are
you're
the
representing
custodian
the.
of the quality,
Mm.
right? It'll be like going ahead with bad grammar in English. I'm not saying it won't be excused. It may be excused because you're able to make do. But the idea, I think, in today's day and age is not really to make do. It is really to achieve the level where they look at India as a hub for work that can be transitioned from francophone countries or countries that speak Spanish. You have South America, you have, of course, Spain, and a couple of other places. So that should be the idea for us overall as language experts, that how do we ensure that as a market this grows as a whole, because there are going to be more and more jobs and more and more quality jobs, and then we are able to showcase ourselves maybe as leaders in that market. Because the good point that we have is the demographic, right? The say about the 25 to say 40-year-olds, or whatever sort of bracket you want to have. That's such a large chunk, and in India, no matter what you do, any sort of percentage that you take out is a number that is crazy. That is probably sometimes more than the population of certain
Certain
countries.
countries, yes.
Yeah, so we can just pull in all of this, and the idea should be to do that, right? Because the more quality we give to the world, the more work we're going to get. No one's going to do us a favor at the
Yeah.
end of the day
True,
by
true.
transitioning work here. They would want, of course, lower costs, but they would also want reasonable quality.
These are companies who want to make profit and they won't work, so it is understandable they want.
Absolutely.
So now, continuing on the same topic, do you feel that the interview process of people who are hiring, they lack, or they lack the understanding of languages, and they are hiring subpar
Mhm.
employees, sorry,
Uh-huh.
subpar candidates, and they are so fed up of taking so many interviews that
Right.
people who should be weeded out enter in the companies, and they perform average.
Right. Interesting question. So this can go both ways. I mean, I've both been an interview giver and a taker, so both sides of the table. I've been very surprised by the level of language people would have, as to, oh my god, I wish I was at that level, because again, it's not like I'm perfect or in these particular languages either. We're just trying to achieve that. And certain other times I've seen that, yes, the other individual, if they were taking my interview, or if they were giving an interview and were, say, a master's, an MA in French or something, which would be equivalent to your C level, whether you want to call it a C1 or a C2, where people really weren't able to communicate that well. So sometimes it does happen that you're like, okay, this is a resource that maybe we can make do with, but maybe he's not at that level that you would want him or her to be at. It goes both ways. Some organizations, of course, would hire people whose skill set is maybe a little mediocre, because the work that is there in the organization requires the language, but not extremely high expertise. Sometimes you need to understand the context. There's again a cost factor involved as well. And we're just talking about, let's say, to give an example, people who are fresh out of language school and just a part of the industry, right? You will have your native level speakers maybe demanding an X amount. The company may have a Y budget, which is lower than that X. And then they're like, okay, why not just get someone who is
just out
maybe
of college and you take less money
and we're able to ensure that he or she is able to do the work that is required, which requires some language, but it's not necessary. And a lot of the jobs that you see, sometimes they say that, okay, this is an advantage, but not really necessary. And that kind of, just to kind of go back to my earlier point, the reason for that, or the reason why we're not getting extremely high level stuff, is because there's a crunch in the market for high quality language experts. Language experts are there. They're everywhere.
But
high quality, yeah, absolutely. The high quality experts. I mean, just not to kind of belittle anyone's hard work. I mean, of course, everyone's trying their level best, but that is the reason that whatever is there in the market in terms of supply of language resources is the kind of work we're going to get. It's going to be that proportion.
I get it. So. Yeah. There could be a number of reasons. Maybe somebody who's excelling in a language maybe does not want to work for an MNC, or maybe they're getting into academics, they're becoming professors, doing their PhDs. Could be any reason. But yeah, a good point of view, which I never thought of. I had a very black and white sort of an approach in terms of this. So another perspective for me. Now coming back to French. You had French in school. Obviously, we know what happens in school. We mug up conjugations. We mug up je parle français, all these things. And that's it, over. We put it on a CV, but in reality, we do not speak. When was the point that you realized that now I should join? You went to Alliance, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when was the point you decided I will go to Alliance? I want to learn French, and maybe I can make a career out of it.
Right, absolutely. So quite an interesting story there. So I initially, when I just finished my my school here in Delhi, the idea wasn't really to kind of learn languages immediately. That was not there in my mind. I was thinking first, I thought, hotel management, then that didn't work out in a manner. Then I was like, all right, let's dabble with chartered accountancy. So I cleared my entrance, my CPT, and was like, wow, first attempt, which I thought was a great achievement. But then I think, it's okay. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not that great either. The mid-level, which is your inter IPCC, is what they call it now, is where I kind of was struggling. So going on to languages was maybe like, I have burnt every other bridge in a manner which I can right now. This is something that I relate to also because my father had done a crash course from Alliance many years ago when he was in college.
How old is Alliance? I want to know now.
I think started sometime in the 50s. I don't remember the exact year.
Wow.
Out of one of those colonial bungalows in Lutyens, Delhi. Shifted then, I believe, to somewhere in South Delhi, South X, and now currently they're, of course, in Lodi Estate, with the current campus. So that again was also a bit of a link because he was always kind of, even in school, he's the one who asked me. I mean, I was in a school where they had, it was a convent school initially, and they didn't really have any sort of foreign languages at that time. When I shifted to the next one in class 8 is when I was like, oh, wow, they have this option. So my father was like, just go for French. And I've learned it. I mean, I've done a crash course in the past. And
maybe I'll teach you.
Right. So exactly कि मैं तेरे को थोड़ा पढ़ा दूंगा तेरे को वो दूंगा. So the first things that I learned how to introduce myself, what to say to the teacher, I kind of mugged it up at home, like you said, and then kind of went there. So that sort of maybe relatability with the language made me feel that, okay, let me just go ahead with this because I know there is a market. I know that I'll make a living out of it. But moreover, I've always been very, very interested in different cultures. And this doesn't necessarily have to be, cultures only outside of India, even within India. It's just that this was more of okay, this will help professionally, give you a launch pad, and then, it'll kind of, feed into my passion. I'll give you a bit of an interesting anecdote. So I was learning French and German at the same time. It was simultaneous.
Same time. So I want to know a few things here. While learning languages, were you also doing your BA or something from open school? Okay.
Right.
So that was happening because I was doing my graduation in Spanish and also went to Cervantes. Both things were happening. So your open school was happening. You were learning French and then also learning German. Now I don't know.
Also learning German, right? So and my degree is a BA in political science. This is from IGNU. Of course you would have language exams. So you would have, if you have 3 sessions or 3 of those batches during the year, you'll give 3 exams, internal exams that you would clear. Otherwise, you can give a DELF certification as well. December was a time period every year where I would have French, German, as well as my degree exams. And that would be a very interesting time in terms of how do you manage and how do you compartmentalize things in your brain and ensure that you're not writing German in French class or maybe French in your political science exam. So that was very interesting for me because I really had to do that segregation, and that was maybe achieved after a while overall, because when I just started and I was learning both simultaneously, I would sometimes say instead of we in my.
But why 2 languages together? Why 2 languages together?
Right. So like I said, I burnt every other bridge. Now, a BA in political science, while it may get you a graduation degree, it's not really something that would make recruiters running up to you, right? Yes. And trying to offer you jobs. So I had that time. In my hand to either do, one during the weekdays, one during the weekend, or, different time slots during the week. And it was like mini college at the end of the day. I mean, it wasn't regular college, so to speak, but it was the nearest or closest experience I ever had to college. And I just thought that, this is just going to give me an upper edge, which it did, which I'm grateful for. Two people influenced this decision. One was my father and one was my school principal, who I met after many years. And she just asked, so what are you doing? And I, at that time, had not chosen my major. In IGNU, you could choose your major. I don't know how it is now. So at that point, I was thinking, sociology. So she said, well, all due respect to the course, but if you're only doing a bachelor's in it, it's not really going to go anywhere. So what else? I said, I'm learning French with it. So she said, okay, if you're learning French, why don't you kind of learn German as well? Because you'll always have an upper edge over the others. And that's pretty much what my father had mirrored maybe a week before that. And when the principal said it, maybe it made more sense because I was like, okay.
It's coming from an authority. It's coming from an authority figure. 2 people are already saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. An authority figure who I hugely respected, very extremely, she was always extremely centered around how kids could do better in school, how do we achieve our level of excellence. Even sometimes I feel the level of confidence that I may have right now to even have this conversation with you also comes from the fact that she would make participation in annual days and certain, say, debate contests mandatory for everyone and give them opportunity, right? So this came from a figure of authority who I hugely respected, and of course my father again, who I hugely respect. So I thought, why not? Let me give it a go. What's the worst thing that can happen? That I'll say, okay, let me do one.
You had already started with French.
I had already started with
French.
Which
level were you back then?
Right. So I started with French, say in April. So did my A1.1, A1.2. The intensive course, and then the next batch was a German intensive batch for 1 month. I think about 4 hours every day or an X number of hours every day. for 1 month, and then your A1 was over in that 1 month, which was very intensive. But I did fairly well there. I mean, because that is what encouraged me. That okay, wow, that in both I'm able to do reasonably well.
Okay, I get it. So it was 8.1, A1.2.
Mhm.
You finished that, then you did your German A1 level complete.
Right.
And how far did you go in French and then in German?
B2 in both.
B2 in both. Wow. Did you attempt I don't know, the German equivalent of DELF? What did you attempt?
Yes, so it's called Certificat Deutsch. So interestingly, in Allianz, I mean, it's not necessary to give a DELF exam to go to. Yeah, you could give your attestation exams, which are equally good. Some people say they can be a little tougher also than the certificate exams sometimes is what I hear. I mean, I can't really confirm, but so I did those attestations in French, gave the internal exams. In German, you have something called a Certificat Deutsch, which you get in say when you do a B2, B2.2, B2. Right, and then in French, there's also an exam called Test d'évaluation français, TEF, which I gave from Allianz in Chennai, and this is while I was working. I just given it to
So
kind
what's
of
the difference between DELF and TEF?
Okay, yeah. So DELF is kind of both are certification exams. So how you could compare TEF is like giving your IELTS, where every attribute, speaking, reading, writing, and listening is evaluated separately. So you may be a B2 in speaking, and you could be a C1 in listening, and say a B1
you get a different score for
writing.
Every aspect of a language.
Right, which is what IELTS would have as well.
Okay.
A DELF A1 or a DELF A2 would only test you for that level.
Complete hota hai, but we have DELE similar, like you have to clear all 4 aspects, but you can get an 80 in speaking but get a 70 in listening.
Right.
But in the end, you get a B2. But your TEF is, let's say, a C1 in speaking but a B1 in listening.
It could possibly be that.
Okay, that's the difference.
Yeah, and say a B2 exam for a DELF B2 exam will only test you up to the level of a B2. Like how good are you when you are given situations or when you have to communicate or write something at a B2 level of language.
TEF is one exam, and then we'll see either you are a A1 in speaking or a C2 in listening. Get it right.
TEF is like we'll give you everything and let's see where you are at in what attribute.
Get it. Wow. But why two exams? I want to know, because in Spanish we have just one DELE. That's it.
Right.
But are the exams conducted by different organizations?
So both DELF and TEF are conducted by Allianz in India. In fact, TEF, at least when I gave it, was only conducted by the Chennai Center as well as the Chandigarh Center. TEF is utilized a lot more for Canada. If, say, for example, you want to immigrate to Canada, you would give a TEF, you would give an IELTS for them to kind of evaluate you, because that is what the Canadian government would recognize as a language of entry. TEF has a certain validity, like I believe IELTS maybe has
2
validity.
years,
right, 2 years, and DELF has no sort of validity.
DELF and DELE.
Right. Yeah. But this really has no logic, real logic behind it, because you could give a C1 in DELF and not practice your language for 10 years, and then later
you're gone.
You're pretty much gone, because it's a fading sort of.
If you don't practice in terms of Hindi, English, or any other language,
exactly.
Matter if you do not practice. But out of curiosity, I want to know. You raised the point where people are there for the Canada PR and they learn French. How many kids were in your class who were there studying French just to go to Canada?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So in my batch, I would say there weren't too many, because it was a lot of students. We did maybe have about 1 or 2 people or 3 people. However, I do recall there was this one exam, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't TEF. There was another exam that used to happen for Canada, or for that preparation or something like that, where you would have a plethora of people, largely from Punjab, coming in and learning and giving those tests just so that they could get that band which is like perfect in nature and get the points to get to be able to immigrate. So this is a very large reason why people would learn French as well, because the doors to kind of Canada open up for you. I didn't have too many in my batch, but I would say this in general would be a fairly substantial percentage of language learners.
I get it. So I want to know, if not French, I know German happened, but if not French, if given an option today to learn any language, which one would you choose?
Wow, that's interesting. And I don't know if I've thought about that.
Because before you give me the answer, I want to say I'm somebody who's very anti-French in a fun way, and I'm not going to say anything wrong about French. Just in a very fun way, when I say everybody speaking French, please go for another language. For God's sake, we have been fed French in our schools, and everybody's like, "Oh, do French." There's a lot of the Indian term scope.
Scope, absolutely.
But if given an option.
So which other language? I would say maybe, both the languages that I learned still had the Romanic script, right? So maybe something like a Japanese, which would have a different script, would be something I would really be interested in learning, because again, culturally, that's such a rich culture of, tradition and modernity living in the same world, and it's just maybe just opening yourself up to the world, to that part of the world in a manner would be very interesting. Something that I would really want to do. In fact, I'd gone to Japan Foundation, not very far away from where I live, and they had this Japanese tea ceremony. They kind of tell you what the ceremony is like, and everything is done in a certain fashion. I mean, it's very if you're not really into it, you'll be like, what the hell is going on? Why can't I just get out of here? Maybe go to a pub. But it's so nuanced, and they would have a way to do everything, and it was just amazingly interesting to be a part of that. So and they do offer language, if not courses, then exam. I'm not really sure.
No, I think they do.
Yeah. Right. So the Japanese maybe. Okay.
Great. So I want to know, now you got a B2 in French, you got a B2 in German.
Yeah.
How are you using those languages today? Like, what are you doing with the languages? Or now the thing is over, it's not being used anymore?
Sure. Fortunately for me, apart from one job that I've had in the past, which was a brief sort of a role, I have always worked as a language expert in whatever capacity. So currently in the organization that I'm working with, I am using it fairly regularly because sorry.
Both of them.
No, only French. And again, this is another interesting part where most of the organizations that I work with, so if it's been an 8-year career, maybe about 2.5, 3 years, I've been in organizations where I've been able to use both, or had the opportunity to use both. But I've always been kind of hired primarily as a French language expert. So in that way, keeping in touch with German has been quite important. And I'm not saying I did a very good job at keeping in touch, because once you get into the entire sort of work situation, you probably sometimes don't find the time. And if language becomes a part of that work, great, you're going to use it. If not, sometimes it may fade away until you put in an effort completely on your own. The other part is that again, to ensure that you're able to improve upon your language, you always have to make that effort on an ongoing basis, right? I mean, I think with the pandemic and all these things, maybe physically we've not really been able to go to these centers, but then of course the internet is a great sort of medium to kind of improve upon that. So yeah, definitely using it today, more French than German. It's always been that case. And a language is always a launchpad, is what I've thought of, right? I mean, even in my current role, maybe I'm using it, but there will be a point in time, say about 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line, where it'll be looked at as an added advantage and not absolutely pivotal to your career, unless, you're working in that country where, of course, it's like going to be like, you have to know it. Like you have to know English if you're working in UK.
You raised a point which is very good, which I tell a lot of people, and they ask me, "Oh, should I make my kid learn a language?" I say 100% make them learn a language. Does not matter French, Spanish, German, but it should be your side dish. It should not be a main course. I made a mistake, but again, I'm branching out on other things. But I made a mistake where I just learned a language, did my graduation in a language, got certified in a language, and it will restrict you. The point will come where you will hit the ceiling, you can't go any further, and you have to branch out in other things.
Absolutely.
What I say is, become a lawyer, doctor, engineer, become a graphic designer, do coding, design websites, and have a language as a side-on skill. Do not 100% completely rely on it, because not everybody would have the mindset or the resources to really branch out and do other stuff, and maybe have the risk capacity to do other things. So I agree with you that maybe after a few, let's say 5-10 years, it'll be considered just an add-on skill, not your pivotal thing about
Absolutely.
if I talk about making a career in our languages. I agree with you.
Right. And if you look at it, I mean, as a launchpad, of course, vis-a-vis an English resource, in generalist profiles, I mean, most language resources who only know languages would work largely in generalist profiles, right? Back-end operations of any industry that you can be a part of, which is SOP based, which is training based, where, you have a basic things that you need to kind of train the person onto, and they'll be able to kind of do reasonably well. So initially, maybe even, giving that extra amount of money to language resources is not something that's going to pinch largely any organization. Beyond a certain point, of course, you'll be at a certain salary level also, right? And then eventually they're going to say that, listen, buddy, you're providing me language services and thank you so much for that. But why do I pay you? Why will I pay you this much? I can get 3 of you straight out of college who don't need to unlearn, who don't have any sort of legacy or baggage attached to what they were doing. Because this again sometimes becomes a problem when certain times resources like, well, I was hoping that the language work would be, or proportion would be higher, or the work would be a little more complex, or it would be this, that, and the other. And that is why maybe I'm not very interested to work here in the long run. Eventually, you will have to, like you rightly said, one, branch out, and two, even if, for example, you're like, all right, I want to do a generalist degree and I want to learn language, I want to get into a profile in an organization, use that launchpad and be a student of the organization that you're a part of. If they require you to learn, say, RPA, robotic process automation, learn that on the side as well. If, learning Tableau would help, maybe do that. Power BI, maybe do that. Or, Lean Six Sigma, whatever kind of works for you. Whatever, sails your boat, and whatever is, important to your organization, because eventually they'll be like, wow, not only did you come in as a language resource and kind of knock it out of the park, you are now looking at ways to ensure that you're able to contribute a lot more to the organization eventually, because it's a transaction, right? I am being given a salary for the skill set I'm able to offer the organization. No one's going to do me a favor to retain me in a job, right? It's like a sales pitch when you're giving an interview that, hey, I have X, Y, Z, A, B, C skills for which I think that my the compensation that I should get is an X amount. So you have to be able to justify that, and language can justify that to an X lakh amount, X dollar amount.
I feel language is an entry point. It's a good entry point. It's a golden ticket. It's a golden ticket to good organizations.
Right.
But after 2 to 3 years, you would realize the ticket is golden. The gold from the ticket is fading away.
It's only gold plated.
So it's fading away. You have to learn. You rightly said Six Sigma or other things too, if you want to grow in the organization. Now, my question to you is, if given a choice, or if you had to choose to do something outside corporate world with languages, what would you do, or what are your ideas? If, let's say, making money was not an issue, what would you do with the languages, with Spanish and German?
I would
French and German. Sorry.
Definitely. I mean, if the world of tourism would open up, I would love to be, like a tour guide or an interpreter, which again is not a very easy, as easy as it sounds. Sometimes I would just, if money was no object, I would have loved to do that, because again, you know, right now, irrespective of where we work, uh, I think our interaction with the culture is still fairly limited, right? Because we're in a corporate setting and you're just doing the same corporate stuff in a different language. However, if you were able to if I were to get the opportunity to get into either say an interpretation or a tourism tour guide sort of a profile, then your interaction is with those people, right? And then you're able to maybe understand a lot more things, sometimes the nuances of how informal communication works. So if someone has learned very standard Shuddh Hindi versus what we speak in Delhi, there's a world of difference.
Yeah.
Again, in Spain, every region may have dialects also attached to it, which lend words to that language. Similarly, in France, because a lot of these countries, in Italy, I believe, was it before the Industrial Revolution, or there was a point of time where only 2.5% of the population spoke Italian, and then you had a lot of dialects. Again, for French, it was around 12.5% of the population. And later, when this whole nationalism sort of started, and this was obviously decades, maybe century plus ago, is when everyone kind of adopted that language. So you still have dialects which are being used. They are going away, but those dialects would lend words to the language. Like in India, even if someone is speaking Hindi in Bihar, you would have things that are being lent to Hindi from the region's dialects or languages. In UP, it would be different. Delhi may be different. Uttarakhand may be different again.
Yeah. So if anybody who's watching the podcast is interested in learning French or German, what advice would you give him or her? Okay, I tell you should do these things and you should avoid these things.
Right.
Any advice for them?
Right. So my advice would be, once you get started, and I am a big believer in doing it from, unless you have certain restrictions or you want to do individual lessons, then of course, by all means. But if you want to do it in a standard manner and physical classes do open up, definitely the culture centers of, Alliance Française, the Delhi AFD, and then, Max Miller, which is Goethe Institute globally. Those are really good options as a starting point. The other part is that when you're learning, the idea should be that you must immerse yourself in the language and the culture to whatever extent you can, living in Delhi or any other part of the country that you're living in. Go for those cultural events, go for those movie screenings, go for some of these musical concerts that are happening. Ensure that you are able to maybe find one friend or person that you could speak to. I'll give you an example. I had a very dear friend when I was learning French, and we used to go to it was Lodi Estate, and I used to take the bus back home, and there's a the bus you need to change.
This was which year?
This was 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, and Andrews Ganj is where he had to change, and I believe mine was would go right up to, I believe, Chirag Delhi, from where I could just walk home. So he would just say that, Shobhit, let's practice. It doesn't matter what we say, right or wrong. Let's communicate. It's cool. We'll goof up. We'll not be able to say things right. No problem. Who's there to judge us, right? I mean, we can't really judge each other. And while there may be, sometimes it had happened once that someone knew some bits of French, and he was like, "Acha, aap ye French mein baat kar rahe ho," in the bus. But largely, no one would really bother, right? So maybe find an individual who you could communicate with on an ongoing basis, and maybe practice the language. If you are fortunate enough to find maybe a pen pal based out of that country and do an exchange, that, I'll teach you English, you teach me French, or I'll teach you English, you teach me German. That again would be a great thing to do, but immerse yourself in it. Ensure that it's a regular thing. No one's asking you to learn it for 5 hours every day in terms of practice. Give it an hour every day apart from your classes, or half an hour every day apart from your classes. the world we're living in today. I mean, at that point in time, I used to go to the library in AFD and use those CDs to watch movies in the library or get
I've
it
done
back
the same.
home and
I've done this.
and put it on my computer. But now you have Netflix. I mean, you can bloody well just watch it on watch movies, watch shows, watch
And we
whatever you
get
want.
TV Mon Sank, the
TV
channel
Sank
on
Bond,
our TVs. Yeah.
yeah. Then you have
It's
Deutsche Welle.
TV Mon Sank, right?
TV Sankmon. So
TV
TV5, TV
TV5.
Sankmon. And Deutsche Welle is another option. It's all live. You have, a lot of these news channels, France 24, France
I used to
24.
get so angry. I used to get so angry that you have a channel for French, but nothing for Spanish on TV.
Spanish.
I was so angry. But you have a French channel, but where's my Spanish channel? But I found a website, rtv.es, rtv.es. So which had those channels. But I've done the same thing where I would pick up those popular Spanish TV series, the daily soaps, and the daily soaps are different in Spain. Get the CDs and watch them, and I would be so immersed, and it would be a new world for me. My God, learning about the Spanish history and how the society works, like the show was portraying that. So it was very, very, very interesting.
Right.
And I want to know another thing. While you were learning French, because I faced this problem when I decided that I want to do my graduation in Spanish, my parents supported. But the immediate environment that I had, I could hear whispers, "ये क्या कर रहा है? What is wrong with him? Why a graduation language? कुछ नहीं होगा." Better, because I was also preparing for law and like, oh, ये law छोड़ के कर रहा है. Were you hearing such whispers?
Yes, I distinctly remember.
Because you told me 2012, even I started my journey
in 2012.
And back then in 2012, it was not.
Absolutely. So I had gone for I don't recall if it was a wedding or a function somewhere in Delhi, and one of my mother's friends just asked me, and her husband was standing right beside her, quite a ex-head honcho of a large corporate in India. I wouldn't name the corporate, but of course, they would have expectations that you would go to, maybe if you're going abroad, maybe to an Ivy League school, or in India, maybe one of those coveted Delhi, absolutely, schools. So then she just went through like, "Beta, aap kya kar rahe ho?" Maine kaha, "Auntie, I'm learning languages. I'm learning French and German." And the husband just turned and he's like, interesting.
So this guy was not listening. This guy was.
And he just turned and he was like, interesting. Kuch. तो इसमें क्या होगा? मतलब what will you end up achieving? I said, I mean, you have organizations who do hire language experts because that is their requirement. And he was like, oh, new field. So he was not really certain, and a lot of people that I met at that point of time at least weren't really certain what is the end point of this, or what is the real scope of learning a language. No one was too clear. In India, we have such a, I mean, for lack of a better word, I mean, things have changed now, but at that point in time, there's such a herd mentality of commerce hai, to aap bas BBA, MBA karo. Agar aap, it's science, then, you can get into, depending on medical, non-medical. But it was no one would really think out of the box in any manner and maybe see that there can be scope in this overall. So I would hear that. And then one funny thing that I would hear at least from relatives, ki kuch bol ke suna de. Not that they would understand what you're saying, ki kuch to bata. So, yeah.
But did it really impact your confidence, or did it like at night you had a thought where, have I taken the right decision? Because for me, I was super confident. I was 19 when I started learning Spanish, 18, 19. So my idea was, I will learn Spanish. The reason I'm learning is football. I will go to Santiago Bernabeu. I will go to Camp Nou. I'll go to those stadiums. I'll watch football, have my beer, talk to local people, and that's it. Dekha jayega. I'll see what I can do out of it. Because if I'm getting good at it, which I knew I'm doing pretty well in Spanish, I'll make something out of it. 100% I'll make something out of it. But I want to know, like, by learning French and German, were you getting those thoughts? Were you thinking, oh, have I made the right decision? Or while people were talking around you about learning language, was your confidence being pulled down?
Right. No, not really. I mean, like I said, I'd burnt every other bridge in a manner. So I was like, okay, this is the last resort. There was one instance, and this was a family friend, someone who I again hugely respect, and he at that point said that, I mean, see, even if you were learning Chinese, maybe that would make sense because
Because you
at
have a
that
lot of
time it was
trade. We have a lot of
the
trade.
big China story. But he was like, and then you're doing two languages together. How are you going to manage? You're doing your degree with it also. And not that at that point I was like, I'm going to show you. But, it just happened to be a situation where, when I was able to clear the first parts of these exams, say an A1 in, French and German and do okay there, is when I felt that, I can do this. So, hell with the naysayers. I mean, I'm not gonna, let anyone kind of pull me down in this manner. And not that it was ever an overwhelming thought. This was just one instance that I can think about where I was like, I mean, at the end of the day, okay, it's maybe advice which is well intentioned, but I'm not gonna kind of back down just because it's not widely accepted by everyone, or what their ideas of what education for a person should look like.
But you were always confident that after learning these languages, I'm gonna find some work or कुछ ना कुछ तो हो ही जाएगा. It's not that I'll be somebody who is unemployable.
Right. So when I started, I generally used to think कि इसके बाद ना what one becomes the UN translator. That is what I used to think.
Even my sister was pushing, Leon, you try for UN.
Try for UN. Of course, that is not the easiest of things to do, or maybe even desirable. So initially, the idea was, okay, it could be this. Of course, I was aware that certain corporations do hire language resources. So yeah, I mean, maybe at that time it wasn't an overarching thought that it's gonna absolutely lead to a good job or reasonable money or something like that. For me, it at that point it was more like, okay, I'm not really doing anything else, so to speak. So I have to ensure that whatever I'm doing, I do it well. If I'm learning this language, let me learn it well, and let's see where that takes me.
And
so
it's a fun process.
it's amazing. It's amazing the parts of your brain that open up you don't even know existed. The discovery of a word, sometimes linking words in French to words in German, both of them vis-a-vis English, because English otherwise is a Germanic
English,
language.
German, and Dutch are Germanic language.
Germanic language, while Spanish,
Italian,
French, is more Romance school of languages. But then while English is a Germanic language, the some influence that we have is there is a fair amount of French influence as well, because of the war that happened.
Countries are sharing borders.
Absolutely, yeah. So
the next thing, and I think it will be the last question that I have for you, is that when you finished your, let's say your German is done, your French and then German is done, did you get a job just after you finished the course, or it took you a while?
I actually was able to get something while I was about to give my B2 in German. So like I said, German maybe was a 2-3 month delay in starting. So the first job that I got, and I was still in my third year of university as well at that point in time, and they said that, can you join in April, I believe, of that year. So I said, no, I have my, last German exam in June. French I was done with by that time. So I have to give that exam and then I'll be able to kind of join you. And apart from that, I have my degree exams at the end of the year. And at that point in time, this was a job outside of the city, and I couldn't really. There was a problem with changing the center also sometimes, even though IGNOU is a national university. But I was like, I'll have to maybe come back. They said, yeah, we'll give you leave. So I got all those benefits, and was very, very fortunate that I was able to kind of maybe get hired before, just about when I was about to say finish my B2 in German.
Okay. So it has been a fairly smooth journey in languages. So I'm done with my questions. So before we end, do you have any questions for me or anything you want to know?
Yeah, I mean, just was very interesting knowing, because I have kind of followed your channel as well, and do see some videos, lovely content. So as a content creator, whose content is kind of centered around languages, I mean, how has that process been? How has that learning been for you overall?
To be very honest, I started this because we were working from home because of COVID,
Right.
and I would be free after 5 p.m. I did not have anything. I started from Instagram, and then I thought, uh, let me do YouTube also, but I had no idea how to do YouTube. But I was following this guy. His name is Vinamra. He runs a channel called Dostcast, and he did a meetup near Orleans at Lodi Garden. I went, I met him, I told him, like, hey, I like your reels, and eventually became friends. He said, buy a mic, buy a tripod, do this, do that, and just start putting your content out there. Don't think too much. And initially, after certain videos, you will get that perfection. You'll get your own style, and you will get your own thing. And while we were working from home, I realized I'm enjoying this thing more. Yes, I have. I'm working for an organization. That's great, but I'm enjoying it more. And at the same time, I also started looking for students. So I was having this conversation with my sister. She said, "Why don't you teach Spanish? You have a lot of time." So she introduced me to somebody who was living in London, in Indian. So he was interested in learning. I had a phone call, and then he said, "Okay, give me a demo class, and if I like, I'll learn." So he's still my student. It has been more than 1 year now. Uh, and then once I got my first student, I got the confidence of getting more students. I teach 4 to 5 kids. That's my maximum capacity for now. I teach 4 to 5 kids. So I thought it's YouTube and Instagram and all these things can be a good way to um, build a. It can be a great way to market Spanish. And if I talk about the bigger picture, that's another source of income, or maybe me, the passion that I have for Spanish, maybe getting it out. That I want to talk in Spanish, I want to teach Spanish. That the thing that we have. But if I talk about the bigger picture, I want to get languages to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about languages in the mainstream in pop culture. I want to do that. We hear a lot of Spanish songs from Shakira, from Maluma, from J Balvin. Mi Gente got so popular. Despacito got so popular. People have no idea what those songs mean. So they and Casa de Papel, Money Heist, Elite, all these series got so popular. Now people know about it. It comes in the mainstream and it goes away because there's this language barrier. So I thought, let me get languages. Like the bigger picture is to get languages to the mainstream, not just Spanish, any other language for that matter, or even regional languages. Like I have friends who are so confident in their mother tongue, could be Bengali, could be Marathi, and I really enjoy, I really love people who have learned languages through Hindi. I'm really fascinated because uh, there were certain kids from my class who learned Spanish through Hindi because they weren't really they did not they were not so good in English. So the other option that they had was to learn through Hindi. So I'm really fascinated. I want to explore the world of languages more, talk to more people how was their journey, because my thing is very it was simple. It was very, I don't know, how should I say it? It was straightforward in a way that football. Oh, Spanish. I love Barcelona, so I'll learn Spanish and then I'll see. But everybody has a different story. Now I want to know your stories. Why did you learn Spanish? Because in college when I went there, not everybody was there to learn a language. Somebody came because they did not get admission in their favorite college, or somebody wanted to learn French and ended up in Spanish, or basically there was no football. Like the reason was not football; it was just me with that reason. So then I decided it's a great way of market, and I want to get languages to the mainstream.
Right. No, amazing, amazing. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. I've always enjoyed your content, and it's really good what you're putting out there. It's really adding value to, at least for people who are curious to know and learn and maybe don't know who to, reach out to or how to get started. So it's great work.
Yeah. So thank you, Shobhit, for being on my podcast, The Language Experience. I hope you had a great time, and I really enjoyed.
Absolutely. It was a lovely conversation. I had a great time. Not something that I've done before. So very unique, very interesting experience. Thank you so much.
I feel we can do another like a part 2 of this because I enjoyed the conversation. Because while talking to you, I got a perspective which comes from a very like a corporate point of view, which I get through languages. So I really enjoyed the whole conversation, and I think part 2 we can do it.
Oh, absolutely. We can do a part 2. I'd love to be invited for that. Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Yeah. So bye, Shobhit. In French, we say au revoir. Au revoir.
Bye. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you guys for watching the complete podcast. I'm sure you're enjoying it. If you're enjoying it, give a video a thumbs up and leave a comment which language you are learning. Till the next one. Adios. So guys, if you're enjoying the videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you.